Very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Anand Pandey, editor, Dynamic Manufacturing India magazine, and the host of Makers and Movers. For this edition, the topic is environmental sustainability, and we have two great gentlemen with illustrious backgrounds to guide us on this topic. Let me introduce the topic to you first. How dare you? When the teenage activist Greta Thunberg hammered these words from the dais of 2019's UN Climate Action Summit at the world's powerful leaders, she voiced the anger of a generation. That imagery of a child castigating global leaders tapped into a very powerful cross generational Abrahamic story of the old sacrificing the interest of the young, sacrificing the future for the present. That message resonated across cultures, and that moment became an inflection point for the issue of climate crisis, making it a top priority for the world's powerful nations. Today, we discuss the subject from the perspective of an industry which is often blamed for being one of the biggest sources of carbon emission, and we will get into whether it is the justified or not. But it is absolutely certain that the manufacturing sector can become the biggest agent and the most powerful catalyst of change in this quest to prevent a climate crisis. We are extremely fortunate to have two thought leaders, two stalwarts of the manufacturing industry with us. And as luck would have it, one represents the electronics industry and the other represents the automotive industry, both of which industries are in the best position to make a change. We have Dr. Ajai Chowdhry, one of the six founder members of HCL, a pioneer of modern computing with many firsts to the company's credit, including the introduction of the 8-bit microprocessor-based computer in 1978, well before its global peers. In 2011, in recognition for helping build the IT and electronics industry in India, the Honorable President of India conferred the prestigious Padma Bhushan, one of the biggest civilian honors in India, to Dr. Ajay Chowdhry. In 1980, starting from India, Dr. Chowdhry took HCL to Singapore and created a business spanning Asian, China, ASEAN, which is ASEAN, China, and Hong Kong. In 1995, Dr. Chowdhry took over the reins of HCL Infosystems and created a 12,000 crore, that is 1.6 billion US dollars size of organization over the next 15 years as a leader in hardware products, system integration, and Nokia phone distribution. Dr. Chowdhry has been at the forefront of helping create the electronics industry in India. He was involved in government committees since 1999. In 2009, he headed a task force created by MEITY, which is MEITY, which made path-breaking recommendations where the task force warned that the electronics import bill will exceed the oil import bill. This formed the basis of the electronics policy. He has been an institution builder and chaired IIT Hyderabad and IIT Naya Raipur and helped build these two institutions from their founding. From 2011, Dr. Chowdhry has been deeply involved in investing in, nurturing, and mentoring startups. He's on the board of the largest angel network in India, Indian Angel Network. He's the chairman of Electronics Sector Skills Council of India and has been appointed as a member of the consultation group on science and technology and innovation sector by the vice chairman, Niti Aayog. In 2021, Dr. Chowdhry co-founded Epic Foundation on industry-led non-profit organization and industry-led non-profit organization, which conceives to develop electronic products of national importance, unleashing an economic potential of 20 billion US dollars and empowering the masses of India by bridging the digital divide and creating a secure technology infrastructure. The other panelist is Mr. Sanjay Khare, board member and vice president, Skoda Auto Volkswagen India. Sanjay, after his graduation in electrical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, in 1986 has been associated with major Japanese and European automotive OEMs in Indian subcontinent for 35 years. In his current role, he is the chief sustainability catalyst to guide actions at 5 brands, Skoda, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, and Lamborghini. Across the automotive value chain, he also stewards the CSR program as chairperson of CSR committee. He leads an active climate resilience program where the automotive major in India has already achieved zero waste landfill, water positive and zero liquid discharge certification, zero accidents, and has already installed 10 megawatt of rooftop solar plant at a single automotive site in India, targeting fully carbon neutral production by 2025 and building sustainable partners. An active speaker on automotive and sustainability topics on national and international forums. In personal life, he is an endurance cyclist, having participated in many adventure ride expeditions. He also spends time in developing mastery on Indian classical musical instrument, sitar. With that introduction, a big welcome, warm welcome to you two gentlemen. Sanjay, I'll start with you. And since you pursue classical arts and is an endurance cyclist, I wish to know from you, especially from your activity of cycling, to establish for us the ground for how severe this challenge of climate crisis is. The context where I'm coming from is that from an institutional point of view, from a government point of view, this indeed is a very serious crisis, and world leaders have committed and to goals as to how much percentage of GDP, for example, they'll be investing in order to achieve net zero by a certain year in the future. So it's already a very serious issue at the top. But from an industry point of view, from our point of view, from professionals' point of view, from a non-institutional point of view, how seriously should we take this topic? Is this a rich nation's problem? Is this a rich people's problem? Is this going to affect us currently in the present? Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Anand, for the beautiful topic that you have chosen, and it's a topic very close to my heart. And just to clarify on the topic, why I have chosen cycling as a activity at my age, whatever I'm nearing, going to be 60 soon in a couple of years time, because this is one thing which builds on my own personal sustainability. The time I cross certain milestones, time I create certain adventures, I'm able to mix up with the people who are maybe 1/3 my age.
Sanjay, can you hear me?
I can't hear him.
Yes, Sanjay, I believe your voice.
I don't know what's happening.
No, now you're audible. Now you're audible.
I'm audible.
Please. Yes.
Should I repeat?
You're talking about your sustainability and the reason you picked cycling.
Yeah, so I have picked up cycling because basically it's a matter of my personal health and personal sustainability. That's very important. Then only I can be a worthwhile contributor to the society. Any point of time you say that my voice is not audible, raise your hand and I'll raise it, speak up once again. So coming to the topic of global sustainability or the climate change or the global warming topics that we are talking about right now, I'll try to go back to the history, because history gives a very good pointer about what the future can be or what the future is coming up to us. I'll talk about the year called 1850. A company in the name of Great Peninsula Railway Company decided to build a railway terminal called Bori Bandar in Mumbai. Bandar as it's in a dock, and Bori because it was the center of the cotton trade. And then a few years later, in 1853 on 16th April, at 3:30 p.m., a journey started, not just for the nation.
Sanjay, we cannot hear you. No, you're not audible. Perhaps there is some issue with the audio device, with the microphone.
Net system, something.
Yes, now we can hear you. Okay. I think it could be loose at the plugging end.
I don't know, because it's a broadband connection over here. It's a broadband connection in my company. I'm not sitting at home. It's a broadband connection. So
the connection is fine, Sanjay. We can absolutely see you.
Good that you raised the point. So I was telling the story of the Great Peninsula Railway Company in 1850. They formed a railway company and they decided to roll out a train in 1853. And the train started from Bori Bandar and it went all the way to Thana. It was a distance of 35 kilometers, done in 1 hour and 15 minutes. It was 14 coaches and 400 passengers. And it it was basically being driven by a steam-powered beast, by a railway engine. Now, this marks a very specific change in the entire history of our economy. You can see how the entire economy is built up around the railways and transportation. It was not just the story of railways and the coal. It was the same time, 1850s, that industrial state started. We started getting industrial production. We started getting mass-produced steel. We started getting mass-produced aluminium and multiple items. Even clothing, which were earlier handmade, started coming from factories in Manchester to us. And all this revolution started by use of two things: fossil fuel, that is coal, or it was petroleum products. Now, in this whole process of almost 170, 80 odd years, suddenly very fast level of carbon dioxide emissions started happening. In the beginning of any change, it was not visible. What is this innocuous thing? It was smoke only. It comes from normal fire also. But then it was realized only much later in the last few decades, particularly since 1990, the time virus COP started happening, that the global warming has really warmed up in a very, very big way. And you can see a lot of climatic changes happening. You can see a lot of floods and typhoons coming. Particularly if we say our own subcontinent, you find that from the central India, the rains have started vanishing, but they are happening in a much deeper way into the lower peninsular part in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu, and where we are getting floods also. So this is what our own country. You can see global warming happening in Europe. The way the summers are happening over there, it's unprecedented. The global ice caps are melting. And there's something known as tipping point. That means, for example, Siberian ice caps, if they start melting, it may be taking disruption of such an unimaginable proportion, which can be a total devastation for the entire Earth. So such things may also reach. So just, I had shared one small movie with you. You can show the global warming movie over here.
Do you want to show the movie, Sanjay?
Yeah, you can show it. I had shared with you. You can show that movie, please, if you can.
Okay. Okay. Just a sec. Just give me a sec. Sanjay, for some technical reason, I'm not able to display it, although it's open on my laptop.
Okay, give me share screen. I'll try to do it at my end.
All right. Yeah, I've just shared. I've just given you the feature.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let's leave it. It's a technical issues. Let's not get into this. So, fine. No problem. So I'll not share it.
Yes.
You can remove my share screen option from me. So now what has happened over this, particularly since 1880 till 2020, the type of carbon dioxide emissions which have been left into the atmosphere. It's not just carbon dioxide, it's total greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, from various 7 key sources of our which mark our typical lifestyle and typical our civilization. So with that, what has happened, that amount of carbon dioxide which has come into the atmosphere is humongous. We're releasing almost 42.5 tons, gigatons of CO2 every year. And if we do not stop it or clip it soon, in the 10 years or time or so, it will cross the limit of budget that we have for crossing the 1.5 degrees centigrade global warming. And that's what the global conference's 2015 COP was all about. And we had also another one in 2021 COP, where even India has committed towards a climate neutrality by 2070. Our Prime Minister Modi had talked about it. So I'll talk about the 7 main energy areas where manufacturing contributes, not just manufacturing, all the sectors of economy contribute. The topmost is energy itself, the power that we produce. The power contributes almost 30% of the needs, and this leads to 30% CO2 emissions and 2% of nitrous oxide. Second is very, very important, equally important areas, manufacturing of steel, aluminum, refining of petrochemicals. This also leads to 30% CO2 of the environment, 8% of nitrous oxide, and almost 33% of methane gas. Next comes mobility, that is all the air traffic, all the shipping, all the railways, and commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles, including two-wheelers on the roads, which contribute almost 18 to 19% of CO2 emissions. Then about building, that means the heating, cooling, even cooking, that contributes 6%. Agriculture, that is basically our food industry, our production of dairy as well, as this contributes 1% of CO2, but it contributes in a big way to 38% of methane.
Sanjay, your voice is not audible. Sanjay, you're not audible. Your voice is not audible.
Not even now?
Now, absolutely.
Okay, fine. So I have talked about 7 areas of concern: energy, industry, mobility, building, agriculture, forestry, and waste disposal. Waste disposal itself, in the humongous amount of waste getting generated today, disposing that itself is going to be a big challenge on the environment. So if we do not really curtail this, our emissions, the entire net zero equation will go for a toss. The world will go into a big global warming. And there's a bigger contest is that if you talk about global warming for the future, it global is, you have to ask a question whether it's for Europe or it's for India, or developed world or developing world. It's all one word.
Absolutely. Is it a rich people's problem?
It is not a rich people problem, it's everybody's problem. For the rich people, the problem may be tomorrow, maybe after 15 years, 20 years. But for our country, the developing world, the problem of hunger and the problem of heat and the problem of education and health remains today also. So we have to somehow balance between the two needs, balance the requirement of today and the challenges coming of tomorrow. But net zero is an inevitable thing. Global warming is an inevitable thing. We have to work towards that. And that's what I think we are here to speak about today. I think I'll leave my comments here and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay, for that very informative and educative perspective. And you're absolutely right. And I wholeheartedly agree, that it's a very severe problem. You spoke about the percentages, the sources of emission, the major sources of carbon emission that are contributing to this problem. I'll move this question, the same question, to Dr. Chowdhry. Dr. Chowdhry, for our generation, this problem has not appeared so stark as it has in the last few years, in the sense that, sir, we have, since many years, we have focused on our GDP growth rate, our progress, our prosperity, the ideals of taking food to the poor, for example. But this thing was not on the top of our priority list for long. And I'm talking of people in the developing world, for example. But in the last few years, it has become major. And now the sense among us professionals sitting here is that it's a problem that Europe is grappling with. There is data there that we have hurricanes there, and then the New York City was flooded the last year, and there was huge news reports about this. But somehow we are not affected as much sitting here in India. I want to ask you, sir, how severe this problem is from an industry perspective. Yes, Sanjay, you were saying something? You're waving your hand, Sanjay. Yeah. So how severe this? So how do you spell out this problem from your perspective?
I don't think we should, as Sanjay rightly said, I don't think we should separate this problem from any part of the world. Pretty much the whole world is affected. And our country definitely will get affected and is getting affected, because look at the kind of changes that we are seeing in climate in this country itself. Suddenly, you have a terrible winter in Delhi this year. It has never been seen before. And the same thing happens with floods in different cities like Chennai, etc. And Kerala 2 years ago was a disaster. And the other clear indication of this is the whole issue of the sea levels. And there's a major challenge that will be there for many cities of our country. And some parts of our country may be underwater 50 to 100 years later. Bangladesh, I don't know how much of it will be left the way various projections are. So, it's already here. It's staring at us. And if we don't actually start to look at it very seriously, then we are not going to get anywhere. And I was very happy when the Prime Minister announced that 2050 is our target. And I think we need not think in terms of, is there any other country that will give us money or funds or technology, etc., etc. We should be doing things on our own, because there are so many things that we can control ourselves within the manufacturing industry. And, how to reduce the use of fossil fuels, how to use alternate fuels, like you talked about Sanjay's plant also using solar power. So, those are the kind of things that we need to also start looking at very seriously, because we should not wish away the problem. We should not think that it is going to affect others. It is going to affect us as much as it will affect others. And I think there is this huge discussion today going on around circular economy. And we all need to be very clear that the circular economy also needs to be looked at very seriously. And it is a very huge issue as far as electronics manufacturing is concerned, because the e-waste issues are quite immense. And the kind of material that goes into the e-waste, the way it gets handled today in major cities in this country is pathetic. Only in the last 4 or 5 years, we've got some good e-waste recyclers coming into being. But the importance of the circular economy, the thinking of brands and thinking of manufacturers in this area has to dramatically change. And these are the kind of changes that we need to take care of this problem. It's a very serious problem, and it is not something, as I said, we can't wish it away.
Thank you, sir. Now we need to know your own experiences, your own initiatives at the place where you're working, on how you're proceeding on this front. Sanjay, do let us know about the recent campaigns and measures that you've taken at your workplace under your leadership to move towards these goals.
So, Anand, before being a sustainability person, I have been a hardcore manufacturing person, worked a lot with the Japanese organizations. And something which I learned from them was, number one thing was how to wage a war against waste. I was literally trained for seeing what are the worst of waste into any system: a visible waste, unnecessary movement, unnecessary packaging, unnecessary waste. The very first thing was waste. So looking around, we found that there are so many things happening as a leakage. If there is some compressed door valve is open, so it's lying open. We are at least bothered about it. If some tube light is on, so it's on. If some water tap is leaking, so it's leaking. The very first thing that lies around is to really capture those leakages and wastages, which doesn't require any innovation. It simply requires a desire and a mindset. Some education is required for the people that it's nothing which comes from anywhere. It is coming from our own earth and our own water, and it's going to our own children. So with that awareness, I think first thing was about a waging war against waste. Any type of wastage is happening on energy front, water front, or any disposal of waste front. Second thing was about finding small improvements with whatever existing technologies are available. For example, we started our journey in 5 key areas. Energy was number one. Then conversion to what you call renewable energy. That's energy, CO2. Our KPI had energy, it had CO2. Then it had water, waste, and VOCs, volatile organic compounds. All these 5 areas we started working in a Think Blue Factory program, and we are measuring this on a per vehicle basis. So if I'm making 5 lakh vehicle or 2 lakh vehicle, I'm measuring that on a per vehicle basis. So this measuring and KPI started giving one common language to the entire organization. And with that measurement, we started measuring every year, every month, and it was there coming on the boardrooms that this is our performance on these 5 parameters. And with this awareness, everybody started making improvements in their respective areas, first capturing the leakages. Then we started capturing waste heats. For in our paint shop in the ovens, there were heat which was getting wasted. We were capturing it back from the outlets and chimneys and reusing that heat. So that was another big thing. It was nothing that we did any innovation. It was simply that we captured something which was possible to capture back. We converted all the lightings from normal fluorescent lamps to LEDs, huge one. We in fact did a lot of our Indian, what you call typical innovation methods of making minor changes to the process to capture this. We started working on water, how we can stop the leakages in the taps, how we can reduce the water faucets leakages or water faucet flow rates. Wherever we can reuse that water, so whatever water comes from one side, can we reuse it for the flushing and all. We started that way. So the journey started with the small ways, the small steps. I mean, climate change is not about big innovations, it's all about that small steps that we take. And small steps started converting into kaizens, into minor improvements, and then into innovation. At one point of time, we felt that we have done enough in our capturing. Let's find out what more can be there. Then we found out somebody who can come and use our empty rooftop space and install solar plants. Now we'll be putting up 18 megawatts by the middle of this year. And this 18 megawatts means more than 2 crore units of electricity which will be converted to CO2, which will be converted to carbon neutral energy. We'll be saving more than 20,000 tons of CO2 a year because of such things. And all this happened because of a very simple business model innovation that we did not invest any money. We asked somebody on an OPEX model, come and use our space and give us energy, which is even 60% cheaper. Instead of 8.5 rupees a unit, we pay just 3 rupees 60 paisa a unit. So we found that whatever is good for environment, whatever is good for society is good for the business also. With this premise, what people got motivated, we make our plants totally zero waste. So whatever money we're spending in 25,000 rupees ton in giving our waste for the landfill, we started repurposing that waste. How can the old paint sludge be used as a primer for painting the structures outside? We got it. How can use the old tires be used for converting into carbon black? We found a success into that. So all these things started in a small way, and mind you, till now there is no innovation. It's all about process innovations, thought leadership that we have driven into our organization, mindset change that we have driven into our organization. Every month we have a big sustainability team getting together and coming up and celebrating successes. And now, after having made the zero waste water positive, we have got very thriving biodiversity in our organization. In spite of spending more than 8,000 crores on launching new products and building industrial plants, our species have gone from 250 to 330, including butterflies, including birds, into plants, animals. That shows the level of high level of environmental care that we have taken of our plants. So it doesn't cost a bomb, it doesn't cost anything, it just simply requires an attitude. Going ahead, yes, the time we want to make green steel, the time we want to make green aluminum, the time we want to lead a revolution of solar energy, and you want to have the right type of copper and right type of various components, we need to have a lot of innovations into material sciences. One important thought process of life cycle engineering and embedded emissions. For example, if you go to market and buy an apple is an apple, just maybe weighing around 150 to 100 grams, but behind that is 80 liters of water. So we have to know that whatever we are doing, the time we are making a car, the time we are making any product, what is the embedded amount of various materials inside it, whether water or whether fertilizer or whether any type of metals inside it. So this life cycle engineering thinking and the thinking of embedded thinking is a very important thing to install into our minds. And I think this is where we have received our success till now. Going ahead, yes, with time we are bringing. I mean, the next phase of industry is all about bringing electromobility, bringing the new fuels, hydrogen fuels, the new possibilities. That's the next phase we are working on, making the big changes happen. But till now, as far as manufacturing goes, we have been able to think basically based upon very, very rudimentary innovations and mindset change that we have been able to make this journey of becoming carbon neutral in manufacturing.
Thank you, Sanjay. That's very inspirational. Dr. Chowdhry, in your experience, what are the measures that you've taken to affect a change in this with this problem?
You see, I think leave aside the manufacturing piece, because I think Sanjay has very well covered all the issues relating to a manufacturing plant and areas where actions can be taken to reduce emissions. And he rightly used the word waste, because I think that's a very major area as far as electronics is concerned. Now, we need to look at doing two things. One, what we can do in an existing plant, and what can we do with the product itself. And number two, what should we do in terms of policy? So if we look at the product itself, the design of the product itself needs to take care of sustainability. If we are going to look at a circular economy, in electronics, it's very super critical to look at the design. Today, what has happened over the last 10-15 years, mainly, is that every electronic device that's created cannot be repaired. So you buy a LED TV, and if your LED screen goes away, you just have no choice to replace the whole screen. There is no repair capability available with any of the brands today. Okay, I personally experienced this twice. The second thing that I want to mention is that all devices, whether you look at tablets or you look at phones, these are the large volume devices. Most of them are not repairable. And the manufacturer's warranty lapses if you try and repair some of these products. So that is where an intervention is required. And we also need to look at the Indian ethos in all of this. In India, we've always have had this concept of reuse. So I would like to say that what we need to instill in the way we think and the way we create products and manufacture, design and manufacture products, is that this whole circular economy needs to come in place. So we need to look at repair, we need to look at reuse, and we need to look at recycle. In our country, reuse has been a very big deal over centuries. Everything we reuse. You go to a village, you just look around you and things will get reused. A toothbrush in India is reused number of times for 200 different things that you do in the house. You never throw a toothbrush. So why is it that we are throwing away electronics after 2 years to 3 years? Because of number one, the Western thinking that it's become old, let's throw it away. Here we have a huge population. Why can't we look at reuse in a very big way? So I actually invested in a startup 7-8 years ago. They were repairing phones. They were picking up smartphones from home, delivering it back to the house after repair. They started to repair. And then they started to repair tablets also, despite the fact that Apple didn't allow it. And then they went to the next stage. They discovered that the market for refurbished phones is huge in this country, because a lot of people in tier 3, tier 4 villages cannot afford to buy these expensive phones. So there's a huge market. And in flat 2 years to 3 years, I think they became a 200 crore company. And recently got bought out by Flipkart, because Flipkart now wants to do this business all over the country. So, this whole situation of repair, reuse is very important. And then the manufacturer's responsibility law that has come into electronics tells you very clearly that you need to recycle your product. You can't just leave it where it is. So if a customer declares that his product is to be given away or thrown away, it's your responsibility to work on recycling. But nobody takes it seriously. But that is the essence of this whole objective. Now, in terms of policy, globally, a policy for repair has become a huge movement for the last 8 to 12 months. And a lot of people all over the world are talking that repair is essential. So, perforce, 2 months ago, Apple was forced to introduce a repair policy for its products. But to me, that's a namesake repair policy where they say you can buy products, components from us, and you can repair yourself, and we will tell you what to do. They have still not opened it up for all the repair shops in the country. Now, a Maruti or any car can be repaired anywhere in the country. But an Apple phone or an Apple tablet or any of these tablets cannot be repaired. So I think this whole policy change needs to happen in India. And fortunately, Electronics Ministry is looking at introducing a repair policy for electronics. So I think this is where the answers lie. We can't just leave it just at the manufacturing end. We need to own the whole life cycle of the product. And we need to create methodologies and strategies to make this happen in the country, because our ethos is reuse.
These are some excellent points, sir. And about the point about product design, for instance, that evokes an imagery of how our corporate leaders in the past used to design products, not particularly thinking about sustainability at the first place, but thinking about the consumer demand and how to ensure profitability of their corporates, which is a fair goal given the stakeholders who are involved in the company. For instance, iPad, for instance, was meant to be non-intrusive by other players because it was Steve Jobs' vision, and at that time, climate change was not at the top of people's priorities. Now, my next question stems from this point, sir, and I'll pose this to Sanjay first, is that both of you being corporate leaders, being people who have set up organizations, led teams, and are still doing so, what are the ways that work most in affecting this change, whether it is motivational, whether it is aspirational, whether it is in the form of introducing new technology, whether it is goal setting, or whether it is instilling a feeling at the individual level that this is an important goal. Sanjay, what is your experience?
So before that, answering this question, I'll just try to add up to what Dr. Chowdhry said about repairs. And it evoked a lot of nostalgic feeling in me because I started my career way back in mid-80s in electronics lab at Maruti Udyog, where I was first 15 years repairing the robots and CNC machines. All the PCBs and drives was repairing, and going to the micro level, chip level. That time we had discrete components, we had transistors, and we had ICs, and we had proper testing equipment, and we could find out using oscilloscopes and analyzers where the fault lies in the circuit, and we could change a small component. And that's how we ran our plants in the absence of any type of service support. Later upon the time service support came, I tied up with major manufacturers like Siemens or Fanuc for automation products that they should repair it for us. And then I think that was one major reason for us able to run the plants with high productivity and do this repairs. And very rightly, after that, with so much of miniaturization happening in electronics at such a fast speed everywhere, today's date semiconductors is a big crisis in the entire industry, whether automotive or whether computers or any electronics. So I think they are not getting designed itself for repairability. That's the very first thing Dr. Chowdhry has very rightly pointed out. So here my submission was that, and this is what we in Volkswagen are working on around the entire life cycle, right from the cradle to cradle thinking. Time we extract the resources from the earth, time we transport them to our suppliers, vendors, and they add value to that. It comes to our plants for further value add. Then we send it to the market and getting used in the market. And after the market, it's getting serviced and recycled and the end of it, at the end of life, how we can make the total thing again reusable. So entire this whole process, reduce, recycle, reuse, and repurpose is a very important word, which we are using in a concept called ELV, end of life vehicle. That means at the end of the life of the vehicle, the entire vehicle should be able to feed back into the circular economy. Nothing should go to the waste, because I'll tell you an example of a battery. Say, for example, an electric vehicle battery. The biggest challenge in electric vehicle battery is that it is costing, it weighs almost 1,000 pounds, about the size of a travel trunk. It contains 25 pounds of lithium, 60 pounds of nickel, 44 pounds of manganese, 30 pounds cobalt, 200 pounds copper, 400 pounds of aluminum, steel, and plastic. So now all this is a challenge. For everything you are extracting from the earth, for everything there are so many embedded emissions, and not just that. Many places you find in Congo, you have child labor who's working in the mines for all this cobalt and nickel. So there are so many social issues. The entire environmental, social, and economic costs have to be seen while designing a product. So perfectly right, Dr. Chowdhry very rightly said that time we're designing a product, we have to have a life cycle thinking in our mind. And very recently I was speaking on a life cycle engineering conference. It was an international conference, and very beautifully this concept has come, that even if you are using a carbon fiber or replacing any atom, how exactly are you finding out the impact on the all aspects of the environment or social or economic aspects before we design the final product. This thinking is coming at the engineering stage, at the college stage, at the designer stage. That's a very, very good thing which is happening. So that was my submission. You can ask me the question once again if you feel so.
No, you have partly answered the question, Sanjay. I'll ask this question to Dr. Chowdhry as to what approach works best in bringing about a change, particularly in this area, from a leadership perspective, sir.
So
this is for corporate leaders.
Actually, this whole thing starts at the boardroom. And interestingly, everybody in India and globally has now to declare that ESG approach in the annual report. Everybody is talking about it and everybody is putting it. So environmental sustainability, governance, this has to be part of running an organization. So it has to start right at the top. And then you need to make sure that it flows down into an implementation plan for the whole company. And you need to provide leadership right at the top and make sure that whenever you talk to any people in your town hall, you are definitely raising this issue as your first issue. If you raise this issue as your first issue, then, I'm not saying you don't talk about revenue, P&L, balance sheet, this, that, number of cars produced, number of tablets produced, all that, fine. But if you start with ESG and then go down to other numbers, then everybody will understand within the organization that how much value you put into this whole objective. And I have always believed that it starts at the top. People need to be able to understand that how are they being evaluated. Everyone in the organization must be evaluated on ESG. What did he or she do towards ESG? And I think that is where, it's not just the manufacturing part of an organization. There are other pieces of the organization. There is administration, there is HR, and there's design, and there's a whole bunch of other places. The same issues are applicable in every department of a manufacturing company or a corporate. So you need to be able to measure, and you need to be able to apply that measure when evaluating every person in the organization. And if you do that very deeply, then there's no way that they will not follow it. If you just leave it as a great statement that you make and you forget about the rest, because it's meant for external information that we are damn good at ESG. But that's not what it's all about. It's all about making sure that you accept it, you believe in it, the board believes in it, every manager believes in it, every human being in the organization believes in it. And I think carrying the whole organization in this direction is what will correct this serious situation. Everyone needs to believe. If Greta believes in it, why can't we believe in it?
That's so true. That's so true.
I'll just add up to what Dr. Chowdhry said, and that is what is my role in the organization right now. Whatever my normal functions, otherwise I'm really streamlined. So this is more of a passion of mine. So I act as a chief sustainability catalyst in the organization. I know how to agitate the organization, how to execute things, how to facilitate things, how to steward things, how to expose the organization to the various risks and opportunities around this topic. So somehow somebody has to take the flag off and really make sure to know that, so that people know what are the possibilities around this topic, how the external environment is changing, how our stakeholders are getting much more aware about this. For example, in Europe today, if you are selling environmentally conscious product, there are many people who are ready to buy those ones only. So it's important for the business also to know that if we do not get changed in this direction, let me just go back to my old story, which I started with, of the steam engine. That was a time that, earlier people were moving on carts or on horse-driven carriages, and suddenly major transition happened towards those steam engines. At one point of time, Thomas Alva Edison said, I'll make electricity so cheap that even candles will become a luxury, and this is what he made to happen. So we have to have that such a big level of disruptive thinking in our mind that will make carbon economy, low carbon economy so lucrative that all these negative things will go away around the carbon economies. And that is where the innovations and that's where the drive is needed. And I think our people in India are very much open to the new ideas and new changes, the way mobile revolution caught up with everybody. People are very open to technologies and changes over here. Only things you have to drive it out. Somebody has to take the lead and drive it, and organizations get educated very fast. And this is what I've seen in my organization.
Excellent, excellent. Now let's take up first question that has come from the audience. Sridhar asks, is there not a vested interest in manufacturers not to make products repairable? Repairing hurts their sales, isn't it? Unless there are laws and incentives that encourage longer EOL, end of life, this change may be difficult. Dr. Chowdhry, sir?
Yeah, he's asked absolutely the right question. Yes, it is in the interest of manufacturers that they do not allow you to repair, because you will, if your battery dies in a year and a half, you'll say, okay, let's throw this away and buy another one. So that's part one. Part two, you look at Apple. You buy an Apple phone, in 2 years flat, it starts to slow down. Why does it slow down? Because the way they keep on upgrading their software, it becomes so clunky and big that it slows the whole system down, and they love it because that's exactly what they want. If it slows down, they want you to replace it. I was having a discussion with Google, and Google is used pretty much in most smartphones except the Apple product. And they told me that they would love to have their operating system keep running, but their chip manufacturer doesn't want it to run. So at the end of 4 years, a Qualcomm ensures that there is no support available for that chip. So these are all strategies that are being developed by all these companies to prevent this happening. And I think this is where the whole idea of policy and having repair policy all over the world is an essential part of making this correction. Otherwise, we will continue to have phenomenal amount of e-waste.
Right. Sanjay, is this true for the automotive industry as well?
Absolutely. I'll agree to it to some extent, not fully, because the automotive industry is totally based upon service stations and service centers. And very recently, in the last 20 years, 2 decades, the vehicles have become much more electronics and much more complex. In one car, there will be maybe tens of CPUs inside and even SIM cards today. So the troubleshooting is a very, very specialized job. It requires specialized tools to do the repairs. So that's why we always suggest that people bring them to the authorized dealers, authorized service stations, where we will repair and I mean, obviously, I mean, automotive industry is totally based upon repairs as of now. There are certain parts which are really, I mean, critical parts which may not be available for some very, say, niche brand of vehicles. But say all the mass vehicles that we are having in the market, for them, spare parts are also available. So I'll say there much more repairability is there. In Europe, particularly, there is a lot of possibility of people selling reconditioned parts. So that thing is still not open in India about selling reconditioned part in a very, very open way, but that's all is used. In India, particularly, I mean, the type of jugaad market that we have, we could find spares for everything in chor bazaars over here. So things happen over here.
Actually, we did an experiment, Anand, in HCL. And we were, as you mentioned, we were the distributors for Nokia phones in the country. And we used to always have this issue with Nokia that whenever a product failed, the repair meant that you would replace the whole motherboard. So we proposed to them that you allow us to actually work on repairing phones at the component level, and we will set up a factory for repairs in India. So we went about doing that. We had 400 people employed in that factory. They were just repairing phones. And we discovered that we could recover 70% of their phones. And they were thrilled because this is something they had never experimented with anywhere. So these are kind of things that we guys can do, you know.
Now, the next two questions are individually directed to the gentlemen who are supposed to answer this. Sanjay, you want to take up the cycling question?
I think I've already answered once, but I can take it. No problem. Let me read it.
You recently completed the cycling marathon from Pune to Mumbai.
Okay.
What motivates you to be a passionate cyclist? Is this a part of that competition that is organized every year since the last?
There is no competition. I'll tell you a personal story of mine. It was year 2010, and my knees had gotten into a bad shape, and I had gone to a big hospital in Gurgaon, corporate hospital, and these people said, "Fine, please carry on for some time, and after a couple of years, we'll give you a knee replacement surgery." That was the type of responses I could get over there. And I said, I have to start working on my own, and then find out that it's important to strengthen my knees, and I have to come to a work-life balance stage. I cannot be overworking always. Automotive industry is very, very demanding. So I started doing some what you call work-life balance thing. And cycling I found was something much easy to start with. I started with that. And slowly after some time, I had shifted to Pune, and Pune has got a wonderful cycling community, a wonderful climate also, and wonderful cycling community. Then I got into groups. And that's where my major goals started happening. I could really get over my very, very, very chronic problems. And then after that, every year I go for very, really long marathons. I mean, they just help me to, really cross the limits and really come into a good level of stability. I go for 100-kilometer, 500-kilometer type of long cyclings in groups. And it's really very enjoyable. I say everybody can do it. It's very much doable.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Chowdhry. Dr. Chowdhry, this is a question that even I wanted to ask. And I'm going to combine my question with this one, and I'm going to pose that to you as well as to Sanjay. Now, the question is that what is your big learning and advice to people who are entering the startup space? Sir, I'll combine my question with this and say that a lot of youngsters today are thinking and are already planning and working towards joining the sustainability space as environmental scientists, for example. A lot of people who used to aspire to become doctors, engineers, which are noble goals, are wanting to do this, especially in the last 2-3 years. Now, they feel that in the corporate world, things do not move with the speed that they want to. Will not be able to make a change in the corporate space. So what they do is they join a lot of agencies outside who do a lot of review, who write a lot of reports, which are very good, but they are not able to make change in a very positive way. So what is your advice to youngsters who are planning to either launch a startup or enter a corporate profession where they can make a change from within, from being a part of the system?
Well, in some manners, these points are connected, in some manners they're not. So I'll first focus on the startup piece. For all of those who want to start a company, I think the first objective that they should have is they should have a team. Most times when some people come to me for investments and they say, I am the only person in the organization and I will do everything, I don't really look at that company. I prefer to have teams. The second thing, obviously, is the constitution of the team. If I find that the founders have the passion and the right attitude to work in life, that's where I give the maximum marks for selecting them to invest. And lastly is the most important point, but doesn't come first in my list, is the idea. You know, a lot of great ideas flounder when the founding team is not good enough. So I think the founding team is what I bet on. And that's what I would suggest people to do, is find these teams, create ideas which solve a problem. So even in the sustainable space, there are many startups today who have created very brilliant businesses around waste. Okay, and there's not one, there are many. And I have invested in one of them in Bangalore called Sahas. And they collect waste from all the top IT companies. And it's a very, very good business. So waste is a big business in this country. As a matter of fact, not enough people are involved. I think we need more and more people to go after this. So to me, it's a great opportunity for people to look at sustainability and startup together.
That's very motivating, sir. What is your answer to the next question as to how youngsters can make effective change from being a part of the system?
Well, within an organization, it depends on the culture of the organization. Okay, certain organizations are culturally built to accept entrepreneurs, as I call them. So they are entrepreneurs inside a big organization, where new ideas are welcome, and you are given an opportunity and a budget to go and create a business. So we used to do this at HCL all the time. I mean, we were entrepreneurs ourselves, but we have so many people who are ex-HCL who have created companies the world over. There are many, many people. Today, if you look around you, you will find at least, even within IT companies, there will be people who are from HCL. Let's look at Tech Mahindra. The CEO is HCL, the chairman is HCL. You know, so there are people who are developed like that within the culture of HCL, where we spawned off entrepreneurs. We also created entrepreneurs within. So we would set up, it was a tradition in the company that we would have a strategy group. This strategy group would create a new strategy for growth of a new business. This strategy group was then told, guys, this, out of those various ideas they came up with, we said, this one looks good. Go and create a business plan and run it yourself. And we gave them the encouragement to go out of the strategy group, because how long can you be in strategy? I mean, it's very boring. You can't keep writing strategies. So if you write a great strategy, then it must be implementable. And it must create revenue. So that's what we did. And those kind of things happen in certain organizations. In certain organizations, they don't accept this. They are very hierarchical. And therefore, those kind of organizations will not allow you to do this. So look for the right organization. And I must tell you that today's organizations are definitely more open to such things than ever before.
Wow. Wow. That's very inspiring. Thank you, sir. Sanjay?
So on this take about, because I have not worked as a business owner as of now, I've been working into organizations. I started with the public sector, typical government public sector. So you should type with a manual typewriter on green sheets. If you remember, Dr. Chowdhry, we used to have green sheets at one point of time. We had manual typewriters. In that time also,
legal paper ke liye aaj bhi hoti hai. They insist that use print it on a green sheet.
No. Now the courts have started accepting the white sheet because there was a public interest litigation, and
I didn't know that.
That has happened recently. So
Yeah.
even then, I had to push a lot to the legal community was start using the white sheets. We are very happy using the old green sheets. Changing the mindset was the issue. Then I started working, and then I worked with a big Japanese multinational, and now with the European multinational. Always, I find that if you got bright ideas, thoughts, and something which is good for the overall good of the company and the society, you can push the ideas. You have to be an ideator. We always say that approver is not the person. Approver is just endorses what the person is suggesting. What is the ideas, whether they are best ideas or not. You can have number of methods to evaluate an idea, but if the person is forceful enough to say that his idea is good, ideas will move forward. And that's I think that's how I moved in my career wherever that I've been. Based upon the power of the ideas, that's where a person moves. I think same is true about the startups also, and nothing better than startup culture today. Yesterday only I visited this Atal Innovation Incubation Centers at IISER in Pune, and I think all the IITs also got a wonderful incubation centers. So we've got so many youngsters trained in a lot of tech trends. And for as simple as 7,000 rupees, you can hire a desk over there. For 15,000 rupees a month, you can hire a lab room over there. For maybe 25,000 rupees, you can hire something bigger. So a lot of possibilities are there today. Proper infrastructure is getting created. Government has done a lot of facilitation. You've got Shark Tank, which has got the highest visibility program today on the television, on the media. So, and it's all about having so many unicorns in the country. So there's a lot of possibility. And if you go to a place like Bangalore, you go to any of the restaurants, any of the coffee houses, you'll find so many people discussing together and incubating ideas and moving ahead. So nothing better. Maybe our generation was a little tough time. We had to work hard to fend for our economics, but I think our new generation, our children, they are really fortunate. They're breathing in open air and they are having a lot of possibilities to do. So I'll say, is that just the right time? If anybody wants to enter the startup, this is the right time.
So Sanjay, if a founder comes to you and says that he or she has an idea for sustainability, would you give him or her an audience?
Of course, I do. Every day I do. And that's where I get a lot of ideas. Yesterday, somebody came to me with an idea about, okay, fine, you've got surplus solar power. I'll give you lithium battery banks based upon whatever old batteries I'm collecting from Europe. Nothing, let's come and discuss it. So obviously, that's how I get the ideas.
Excellent. I'm so glad this is reaching an audience, the manufacturing sector, and this is going to take this topic a long way. Ladies,
ultimately,
yes.
it's all about collaboration. So ultimately, I cannot do everything on my own. If there is somebody outside having some core competency and he comes in, we certainly not just given ideas, we ensure that the person gets something to do with us.
Bang on.
I would like to add another point, Anand. A lot of times people think that startups are only meant for software and technology. I think that's not correct, because what I am seeing today is from all parts of the country, smallest cities and different segments of the market, startups are cropping up. Whether they're in agri-tech or fintech, or they are looking at creating a new molecule, or they are looking at creating a new electric vehicle. I see all these things all the time. So people should not think that I'll create a great app and that's what we win my startup. Stop thinking like that at all, because that's history. You need to look ahead. And today, since we are talking about manufacturing, I would encourage a lot of startups to look at manufacturing as a place to start. Because if you look back at 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago in electronics, the whole electronics industry was built around SMEs, MSMEs. Unfortunately, the policies of the country did not support manufacturing, and therefore everything shifted to services. But I am a great believer that manufacturing is an essential part of the country. And manufacturing should occupy minimum 25% of GDP. And today, interestingly, in electronics, new policies are creating opportunities for startups. Okay, so earlier, funding never used to be available for startups. Now, enough funding is available. Startups are coming up in design. Startups are coming up in manufacturing. For example, in the new semiconductor manufacturing policy of the country, there is a very interesting module that is called design-led incentive. So the government wants 100 small companies to get set up and come up and do designs of VLSI chips. And they will fund you up to 50% of the cost of the chip. So if it takes you 15 crores to actually design a very extensive chip, they will pay 7.5 crores of that.
Wow. Collaboration and partnership. These are the biggest takeaways for me personally, and I hope for our audience also to take from this wonderful discussion which we had with our two eminent panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw what working and thinking in collaboration can bring to the table, can help us tackle any challenge, and especially the challenge of climate crisis that faces us today. This brings to my mind very quickly this example of TSMC, sir, since we were talking about the electronics industry. There was recently an article in the New York Times and there was a columnist who wrote about this, I think, Mr. Thomas Friedman, who wrote the book, The World is Flat. And he explored as to what was the one reason that made TSMC the powerhouse that it is today. And he reached the conclusion that it was collaboration. The fact was that it was not particularly the investment at the right time, but the fact was that this company collaborates with the best technology companies in the world, whether it is from Europe or the US. And they all of these companies trust this company to collaborate with them, keeping their confidentiality, keeping their strong points in place. So it is the collaboration that makes, whether it is a country, whether it is a sector, a global industrial hub. I thank you two eminent panelists, two gentlemen, for giving you valued time. There were a lot of things that I learned particularly, and I wish you a great day ahead, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much, Anand, and thank
Good
you,
meeting you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Dr. Chowdhry. I think we should keep in touch. Otherwise, also a lot to learn from you.
Yeah, we should chat with each other over a period of time.
And,
sure.
And for our audience members, if you have any questions, please send them to my email, and we'll ensure that your questions reach our panelists. Thank you so much, our audience. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.